Thank you for staying with us. Back on the AM show, and in our first big story before we talk sports again, we take a look at what is happening in Parliament today, that motion of censure against Ken Ofori-Atta. But interesting dynamics come up. When you look at the front page of the Daily Guide today, the question is posed, Ofori-Atta to resign? Cabinet reshuffle looms. Well, we get into that conversation ahead of what will happen today in Parliament with our guests, Edem Senanu, an anti-graft campaigner. And we're also joined by Kobina Atta Bedu, a procurement analyst. Thank you, Edem and Kobina, for joining the conversation.
Thank you for having us, Ben.
Great. I'll start with you, Edem. So when you look at the dynamics so far, what has happened? What happened a few days ago, which brings us back to Parliament today? What did you make of that initial sitting of the ad hoc committee? Briefly on that.
Well, in my mind, parliamentary processes ought to be followed, and the Parliament of Ghana is seeking to do what is in the best interest of this country. I think that that initial sitting was what the kind of thing we'd expect. I'm hoping that the further work the committee is supposed to do will also be done, and the report back as expected by the Speaker, so that then the follow-up actions can be taken.
For you, Kobina, what do you make of that initial sitting in Parliament?
Frankly speaking, it feels to me as if we are having to go through the motions. But what will happen afterwards is what is important to me. Looking at the words of the majority, it has become obvious that whatever findings the committee comes up with, it will come down to coming to the plenary, and it will come down to voting. And the majority have made their position clear that they are not going to support the censure. So actually what is happening is a charade. Then that is what it comes down to.
You call it a charade. Why?
Because they are doing something probably for posterity's sake to show that, yes, we tried, we did this. But what the people, and believe you me, this is not only about the 80 members of parliament who petitioned the president. It is about what the people of Ghana are asking for. And if the president says that he was voted into power by the people, and the very people who put him there are insisting that take this man out, everybody, including your own party members, are saying, take this man out. And he is adamant to take him out. Then what it means is that indeed, partiality and nepotism is bad for governance. And he is a perfect example of that.
Now, to both of you, I'll start with you, Edem. When you look at the points that are raised by the minority in Parliament, as far as this vote of censure or motion of censure are concerned, they talk about fiscal recklessness, they talk about conflict of interest, 7 crucial points that they make mention of. Are you in agreement with any of those points? Yesterday, I had the Member of Parliament for Anyaso Utum, who is a member of the MPP, come here and say that, well, they could have agreed with other points, but not those 7. Because in the end, they could also border on criminality. Do you agree, as far as fiscal management is concerning, as far as our debt ceiling is concerned, and what the finance minister has done? Has he been as poor, reckless, as the minority paints the picture?
I think that the evidence on hand suggests that really, and it's probably not just the minister, that they have breached the laws of this country. Public financial management has not been followed. Ceilings have not been adhered to. And if you look at whether it's the PIAC report, etc., there's no doubt in my mind that the painstaking nature of the task and mandate assigned to the minister has not been fulfilled. I will not begrudge the minority's position, and obviously all of us know why the majority are taking that position they are. Except that I also know that, as we have seen in the past, it depends on how the speaker asks for the vote to be done. You may still have the majority saying that we have a position, but if the speaker says that this is going to be a vote that is not a public vote, we've had surprises in the past, and we could have surprises going forward. So I align fully with what the minority is saying. I think that the evidence is too clear for anyone to suggest otherwise. I think that this is a very important and unprecedented point, a moment in the time in the history of this nation. We should not fail to do what is right for the citizens of this country. Otherwise, I don't know what the NPP thinks or the members of the NPP think the future will look like. So we need to be very cautious. They should not think that right-minded Ghanaians are not paying attention. And by the way, we are all feeling the pinch and feeling it hard. So that has a lot of implications. So yeah, those would be my thoughts.
Let me come to you, Kobina. You hear Adam Senanu concurring, agreeing with the minority. I'll walk you through the list of items as a procurement person. Conflict of interest, unconstitutional withdrawals from the consolidated fund, illegal payment of oil revenues into offshore accounts, deliberate and dishonest misreporting of economic data to Parliament, fiscal recklessness leading to the crash of the Ghana cedi, incompetence and frightening ineptitude and gross mismanagement of the Ghanaian economy. These are not things you can take lightly. Do you agree that the finance minister has dabbled in some or all of these?
I fully concur with them on these points. Now, let's take the first issue of conflict of interest,
right, which
has provisions in the Constitution. And it's typical for corporate governance all over the world. The gold standard of which is the Sarbanes-Oxley Act.
Okay.
There is no way any organization that is directly related to the finance minister should be transacting business with the finance minister. Now,
but just
the procedure for
just a quick
situations
point.
Like that.
Just a quick point.
The procedure for situations like that,
right,
is that you should declare the conflict of interest.
Okay.
And recuse yourself. Then someone else would lead the transaction. My question is, can he provide documents and evidence to show that prior to the engagement of the entity associated to him, did he go through the motions? If you ask him today, he may be able to present you documents, but did it happen prior to their engagement? That is where the OSP can interrogate, investigate, and will find out. Because even if it's a digital documentation, if we go to the source document, if it's a Word document, go to the properties of the document, you'll be able to tell when that document was created. I'll give you an example of something, and I have personally seen it, read it. There's a project that we have spent $36 million called Smart Work. It was done during the COVID. That was supposed to help the public sector workers work remotely. That whole transaction was done without PPA approval. $36 million was spent without single source, without PPA approval. It was done, finished, and they went for what is called ratification. Now, let me tell you, when it comes to ratification, number one, it means that there's been an infringement. There's been an investigation. And after the investigation, the ratification is granted because a liability has been created, which you can't undo. So you ratify so we don't get into judgment debt. But normally, someone should be punished. Now, that transaction was led by the Ministry of Communications through its agency, NITA. Now, who has been punished for that? Again, the minister appointed the chairman of the Public Procurement Authority. He violated the Public Procurement Act by appointing that person because based on the competencies that had been spelled out, that person should not be there. But he is there. I personally wrote to him, delivered it to his office, sent a copy to the Speaker, sent a copy to the Council of State, asking that the chairman and the 3 members do not qualify to be there according to the law. Why are they still there? That is cronyism. So we are not only dealing with nepotism in this government, we are dealing with cronyism as well, and it is bad for governance. So if I pick the first one of conflict of interest, you have nepotism and cronyism playing heavily.
Quick comment, Kobina. Quick comment. Quick reaction.
How bad the situation is.
Kobina, can you hear me? So I
Yes,
just want to
this
excuse or rationalization of the situation is often put forward. When mention is made that Databank, for example, was a transactional advisor even before Ken Ofori-Atta became Minister of Finance, does that water down this accusation in any way?
It doesn't, because they are not in contract in perpetuity. It is transactional advisory. It means you contract him for a transaction. He could have served as a transaction. That is why, you see, let me be honest with you. When Ken was appointed, people raised issue. I am one of those who supported him. My basis was, he is a Ghanaian first. He is a professional second, before he's a cousin to the president.
Right.
Does the fact that he is the cousin of the president preclude him from offering his services to the state if he has what it takes? That was my defense for his appointment. Now, once you have been appointed, you have to satisfy your merit for being there. Now, the question is, has he earned being there? Obviously, his performance is there for us to see. Should he still be there? Hell no. Why is he still there? The president is protecting him. Why should the president protect him? Simply, he's his cousin. We'll go home. We'll have to face ourselves. That is nepotism. That is bad for governance, period.
Adam, I interacted with Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo, himself a statesman and a founding member of the MPP, and he said that on the back of some of the things that had happened, where proud people will not go to the IMF, and having gone to the IMF, the finance minister should have resigned by now. In fact, he should have resigned there and then when we had to go to the IMF. Then he also says that the finance minister could be at post because he is sitting on some rot that maybe would be exposed if he were to leave. But how then do you react to his own caucus in Parliament stating that they do not want him, and the entire ping pong between let's not have a motion of censure, but we are not in agreement with him, will not partake in government business? What do you make of it all?
Well, I get worried that our governance, the political economy and the business of government is now being infiltrated by business caucuses and cartels who then begin to determine what happens. And let me explain.
Are you referencing this businessman who supposedly went to try and do something with the members of parliament?
Maybe it's an allusion to that as well. Okay. Because it looks like the political landscape, depending on who funds what and the level of money is put in, you have a seat at the government table, and that seat effectively becomes a permanent position, which cannot be shifted because there's a sense in which maybe you may have paid $250,000 or $500,000 or something, and people don't want to shake it because they shake the establishment because there's too much on the table that might come into the light when one begins to say A should go and B should stay. And I'm just trying to project. I know I haven't answered your question directly, but there has to be other reasons. So yes, I would align with those who are saying that it's got to be more than just we like the name Ofori-Atta, so that name must still be there.
Right.
There must be a good reason why the president is finding it difficult. Pabna talks about
what is your reason? What do you think?
No, I think that absolutely they must go beyond than just the family relationships. Right. I suspect that there must be to do with the financial arrangements. A reason why the president is finding it so difficult to say this man can go. Whereas all the evidence, whether you look at international best practice, whether you look at the facts on the ground, it points us in the direction that this ought to have happened even voluntarily, much earlier than where we find ourselves today. And that would have spared us all this, the increasing crescendo in this space. And I'm hoping that somehow, somebody's going to have the good sense of saying that, look, let's think about this differently and do things differently so that we don't, get to a point where it is so obvious that it is much more embarrassing than it could have been if we had taken this decision much earlier.
Okay, so just a bit of a top up. They wanted Ken Ofori-Atta to go together with Charles Edouboahen. We all know the Charles Edouboahen issue, so that is out of the picture. But the Daily Guide reports that he could be resigning soon, that there could in fact be a cabinet reshuffle. Would you expect the resignation of the finance minister in the coming days, especially as we have what is going on in Parliament, where he's going to be defending himself today?
Given the posture of the first gentleman of the land as well as the Minister of Finance, I doubt that he would voluntarily do that. I think that it has to be the president's call to rearrange things in such a way that it doesn't seem worse than it seems already.
Okay.
So I don't see him voluntarily putting in a resignation.
Okay.
The parliamentary processes, depending on how the vote goes, and so that's why the speaker needs to make a choice that allows even the majority to then be comfortable. Because I'm quite sure that some members of the majority understand that, look, this is terrible. And for the sake of the people, the public interest, we need to do the right thing. In which case, the vote itself will tell the story.
All right. Let me come to you, Kobina. Do you also have that feeling that maybe there could be more to Ken Ofori-Atta being a post on the back of some of what we've enumerated, just beyond nepotism? Do you feel there could be something else which keeps him in that position?
Yes, of course. Definitely. In Akan, there's a proverb that says that papa. So if someone begins to act in a certain way or talks in a certain way, you ask yourself, what is informing this? Now, if you look at the level of uproar, including from within his own party, and he has this posture, and the president has taken this posture, the question that beggars ask is, why is he adamant to leave? This man says he's there, he doesn't take a salary, he's serving Ghana. So if you are giving your services for free and the people say they don't want it, why don't you want to leave? Now, if you cast our mind back, right from the beginning, 2017, we had the issues of Franklin Templeton, and conflict of interest issues were raised. And it has run through. We have issues of his competencies being questioned. I remember at one occasion, he was at Ashesi University for an event, and I posed the question that was read to him. And I asked him, what is he doing about expenditure management?
Right.
Very soon, we are in November, we are going to be presenting the budget to Parliament. Believe you me, all our focus will be on income and raising more revenue and raising more taxes. But you would have nothing concrete, and I mean concrete, actionable items to do with expenditure management. So if you tell me that we are cutting expenditure by 30%, as a procurement person who does spend analysis, I would want to understand where you are cutting this from, what are the drivers, what are the levers, what is the level of fat that is on it, which is why you are cutting. You don't just cut for cutting's sake. These are competencies. Now, where are the skills in the ministry to deal with these things? So, even if the president wants to move him today, it is too late. He should have done that years ago.
All right. So to wrap the conversation, gentlemen, I'll give you a minute and a half, 2 minutes apiece. I want you to look at these issues. One of you made mention, I've forgotten which one exactly, that even in terms of the allegations that have been leveled against him, the special prosecutor must come in. Someone has also spoken about the businessman, okay, in question, who came to Parliament hoping in a way to influence the decision as far as the finance minister is concerned. What are your thoughts on these two matters? And as that ad hoc committee reconvenes today to sit in Parliament, what will be your expectations? I'll start with you. Kobna.
Yes, so I raised the special prosecutor issue. Now, if you look at all those items that have been listed, it borders on criminality.
Okay.
Or most of them border on criminality. And especially when there's procurement involved, the special prosecutor has the mandate to address those issues. So I'd expect the special prosecutor to pick them up.
The businessman?
And yes, that is also cronyism, because what it means is that the businessman actually perpetuated influence peddling. Now, is it true that he went there? Is it true that he offered bribes? Because if he offered inducements, it is bribery and it is criminal, and it means it has to be gone into. Now, we are all hearing rumors in the corridors and on the street corners that it is X-businessman or Y-businessman. If indeed it is X-businessman, there are many, many more instances of influence peddling and alleged bribery that has been put up against him. Why is he still there? In ordinary terms, in normal governance, he shouldn't be doing any business with the government. Why is he doing business with government?
So just add on, what are your expectations as the committee sits today?
If I was him, I would resign, because he has built a perfect career up until this time, and he has thrown all down the drain. And to save his own face, it is better he resigns than he is sacked.
All right. Kobna, thank you. Just hold for me as we wrap the conversation. Adam, you have a minute. What are your thoughts?
Well, yes, there's a lot of criminality going on. I think that we have enough evidence of that. So the special prosecutor should be minded.
Okay.
The business angle worries me, because beyond we need to look at the political party financing thing critically, and beyond that, within the 4-year space, how do we manage all these business persons who are, openly trying to give money here, influencing? We need to think through those processes some more and think, how do we manage that? Because a lot of it could be done on the quiet side and therefore influence the kind of results that ought to inure to the people of this country, but will not.
Right.
Ad hoc committee needs to understand that this is not a very small issue. It's not just about the process. It's not just about going through the motions. The people of Ghana are heavily invested in what is going on in Parliament at the moment. And I'm hoping that both the majority and the minority work together for us to understand that they are truly our representatives and not just there to tick the boxes and make pretense that they are there on behalf of the people of this country. We are watching them.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Ofori-Atta is a procurement analyst, and of course, Edem Senanu is an anti-graft campaigner. Thank you so much for joining the conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you too.
Great. Now, after the break, we have a conversation with Oxford Royal Summer School and how you can be a part of this awesome experience and opportunity. Later on, we'll also be interacting with Enterprise Life. And stay, because much later, we also dissect the fortunes of the Black Stars in the Mondial coming up in Qatar 2022. All that's still to come on the AM show. Stay.